Okay, so to build the base of our album, we need 4 pieces of chipboard. How are these all upside down? 4 pieces of chipboard that are 5 by 7, 2 that are 1 1/4 by 7, and 1 that is 2 3/4 by 7. Okay, they're gonna go in this configuration right here. Okay. To cover these, you need 1 piece 9 by 12 and then 2 pieces 9 by 9 1/4. I'm gonna move my chipboard out of the way for just a second here. So we can build our cover. And what I have done on these is I've scored this. So I don't know if you can tell. Well, I'm still not in my craft room yet. I'm still working out of the kitchen and the light is not as good in here as it is where I normally work. So I've scored this at 1 inch from the top. And then with these, 1 inch from the top and then 1 inch in from the side. I'm using 1/2 inch score tape to put these together. So what I'm gonna do is get in here, maybe, kind of, sort of. Okay. Pull that back just a tiny bit. And I'm gonna line this all up. Make sure everything is lined up where I want it to be so that my edges are lined up. Push that down there. And there we go. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other end. I'm gonna pull that up just a tiny bit so I can get this all lined up before it gets stuck down. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency when I just pull the tape off and try to line it up that it ends up crooked, or I end up with a bubble somewhere in the middle, and I don't want that. So, okay, we're gonna burnish this down. I'm actually gonna turn this over so that we're folding towards the bumpy side of our score line. Okay, so now to get the chipboard on here, deciding how I really want to do this. This base piece, when it's assembled with the 1/2 inch tape and everything, is sized so that you're getting 3/8 of an inch gussets between each piece. Why such a big gusset? This is in part because I'm using different paper for my base than I normally do. Normally I use just the 65-pound cardstock from Michaels. I've had really, really bad luck with it lately. And as far as it just being off on sizing and everything else, actually I maybe need to turn this back over. You know, with weird sizing and just, I don't know. I haven't been happy with it lately. So this is the artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations, and it's really nice stuff. It's heavy, it's good, it's a good weight. I just almost think it might, which I know that Tammy at Country Craft Creations uses this on all her albums, as do her design team, and they are able to wrap it without it cracking. My initial attempt at this yesterday, it cracked really badly, and I think I know part of it was my gussets were much smaller. So I went through and like kind of, you know, reconfigured how I'm doing this. So I think how I'm gonna start this, just so we get it evenly spaced, I'm actually going to start at the end. And that's what I was trying, actually, before I do that. Okay, because we've had to piece together the paper for our cover, you're gonna have a seam, okay? And the key is, how much seam are you gonna have close to a fold point? So this way, we're okay. And I do have these all taped up, ready to go. This other side is actually better. So I am gonna fold this the wrong way. I know you're supposed to fold into the bumpy side of your score mark, but it's not gonna work for me to do it that way. So what I'm gonna do to start, I'm going to start at one end, and before I do that, sorry, I'm like all over the place today. But it's still better than where I was last night, because last night I was just a big old mess. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of my chipboard pieces, I'm gonna lay it on here so that it's just to the, when it's standing up this way, it's just outside that corner you see right there where that score mark is. And I'm gonna mark it to miter my corners just to make sure that when I miter them, it's straight and not like too deep of a cut or what have you. So I'm gonna mark that. Well, it'd help if there's lead in the pencil, wouldn't it? Okay, that's actually not working, so I'm gonna do it this way. Well, once again, I just shouldn't even be doing this today, apparently. Okay, that's better. So all I'm doing is just starting out with my pencil about a 1/16 of an inch out from that inside part of the corner there, holding it there, putting my ruler, and then just running a line. So this way, when we go to miter this, we can actually put our tape up to that line when we get ready to wrap this, and then miter it. That way our tape goes all the way to the edge on those corners. Okay. Anyway, back to what I was trying to do. All right, so we're gonna pull the tape off of here. And I'm just going to line this up between all of my score lines here, right at the edge of the score lines. And push down. Okay. And do the same thing on the opposite end. All right, so now then, in theory, if assuming, of course, that I have actually done my measurements correctly, we should be able to put the rest of these pieces on here with 3/8 of an inch in between. So this is 3/8 inch score tape. I've lost my big. Oops, what did I do with it? I literally just had it here. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'll find it here in a second. Somewhere I have now lost my spine piece for this. How did I manage that? Because there it is. Okay, so in theory, we should have, we're not quite there, so we're very, very close though. So what I'm gonna do, 3/8 of an inch there. And this is why we started at the ends here, because we need to get the rest of these pieces evenly spaced in that space in between, okay? So we're gonna go, have my 1/4 inch? I think that's gonna be too tight. Yeah, that's gonna be too tight because that's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be weird. Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna start on one end. I'm gonna hold my score tape in here, and then I'm just gonna line this up with that bottom score line. I'm gonna push this up against the side of the tape, and actually, to ensure even a little bit more that this stays put and stays accurate the way I want it to, I am actually gonna take my handy little non-slip Cricut ruler, and I'm gonna put that right up here. Okay, sorry, it just felt like it was not quite right, lining up quite right. Anyway, put that down against the edge so I have somewhere at the edge to push up against. So I'm pushing against the side of the tape, and then I'm gonna push this end against the edge of the ruler. And there we go. And we're gonna do the same thing on the opposite end. Okay. All right, so now then, let's see here. Okay, so the rest of this, we're gonna be just maybe a 1/16 of an inch off, and that's fine. Okay, so the rest of these, we're gonna still push them up against the bottom of this ruler, but we're just gonna kind of eyeball it and get as close as we can to 3/8 of an inch. And I'm sure there's probably a better way to do this that somebody else has thought of that I haven't run across yet, or, you know, if I, you know, I don't know, if I had more time to, you know, sit and play with this and whatnot. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing again, go into the other end. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to make sure, because you're gonna have both of these sides that are gonna fold in, and then they're gonna fold in towards themselves. The reason that we're gonna do it that way is because we want them to fold evenly so that one's not up higher than the other, so that we get an even spacing all the way across up to the point where and then our center piece. All right, and then we're just going to center this one. And there we go. All right, so now we can get our tape all the way around, just the normal way that you wrap one of these types of albums. And I'm gonna get some tape on here and get it ready to go, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've run tape around everything. just need to miter this last corner. Scissors. I don't know why I'm using these. Okay, so see how very little tape we wasted there. That's awesome. So, if you've ever done a mini album, you know how to start by kind of pre-folding. I then have been taking my foam folder and just going along the edge here to help with that fold. Doing the same thing. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pull the backing off on this side. So I used 3/8 inch tape on the chipboard and 1/2 inch on the flaps that we're going to be folding over. And I'm also going to even though I have gone along here and I've got this fold good and started, I am actually going to take just a little bit of art glitter glue and I'm just going to run that down in right along the top of the fold. Or well, in the valley, I guess here. Not really the top of the fold. The top of the chipboard against the fold. I know what I'm trying to say. It's just not coming out right. Okay, so starting in the middle, I'm gonna push that down and just work out to the edges. Okay, so I'll come back and burnish that here in just a second. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to start by folding this over, just working that over, going along the edge with the bone folder just to make that crease, get it good and set. Lost my, there it is, my ultra dull pen blade I've been using to get tape backing off. Just a good thing it's dull. I stabbed myself in the hand with it the other night and did nothing, so that's a good thing. Because when these things are brand new, I don't know if you've ever used one, they're awesome, but they are like crazy sharp. So be warned. Oops, there we go. Okay, we're gonna do the same thing with the glue again. Okay, and starting in the middle again, just gonna fold that over, push it down. Okay, all right, so now on these ends, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the edge of this here, actually I think we're gonna use that end. We're just going to kind of push those corners in ever so slightly. Because then when this folds over, you have a nice clean, crisp corner. And all will be good. Same thing again, push in from the middle, work out. Okay, same thing again on this end. Fold this over, get our corners popped in. And honestly, if you forget this step, it's fine. It just makes for a little bit cleaner corner, but it's not a big deal. Okay. All right. So that's wrapped. We're going to come along here and just get this burnished down. Make sure everything's good and stuck. And the chipboard that I'm using for this is the new medium weight chipboard from Graphic 45. I'm using what was left in the March Club G45 kit that had the Proper Gentleman paper in it. And it says it's medium weight. It is not, as I would consider it, probably closer to lightweight, because it's not as thin as like a cereal box, but it's not as thick as the Graphics medium weight chipboard that I usually use. So I like it. It's easy to work with, but there's a difference there, like that you can feel in the thickness of the chipboard. So, okay, so now I'm just gonna kind of burnish down into those gussets. And then we can kind of start training our book on how we want it to fold. Right there. So we're just gonna put a tiny bit of glue in there and kind of push that down, because if I was still using the Scotch Quick Dry, I couldn't do this, because the Scotch Quick Dry has a very glossy sheen to it when it dries. The art glitter does not, which is awesome. Okay. One side, do the other side, same way, making sure everything's laying flat like we want it to. Not laying flat, it's lined up like we want it to. This one is just slightly off and I'm not sure why. That's okay. Okay. All right, so that is what the book will look like when it's closed. And we're still slightly off. That's what I was trying to avoid, because see, you can see how there's just like that maybe a 1/16 of an inch difference between those two. That's what I was trying to avoid, but it's okay. It's handmade, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure we didn't crack anywhere else. I think we're good. All right. So now we need to hide our gussets here. So what I think I'm gonna do, I have scraps. Let's see what we have. I think that's probably best. Maybe not. Hold on. And this is the problem with working at my kitchen table as opposed to down in my craft room, as I've got just like random stuff everywhere up here. Oh well, that's okay. So what I'm gonna do is grab my paper trimmer, grab another piece of cardstock, cut this down to 7 inches. Oh, maybe we are. What did I not do? At the very end here. Whatever. Okay. I said it's not my day for this, apparently. So we need this to be 7 inches high. How wide is this? Let's see. This one is 5 inches. So let's cut this to 5 and 5. Okay. Cut this one to 7. All right. So we're going to put our gusset hiders on here like so. Actually, we don't want those to be 7 inches high. Sorry about that. You don't want those 7 inches high. You want these to be, let's try 6 7/8 first. Let's take 1/8 of an inch off there. I don't think it's enough. Oh, no, that should be okay. All right, so 6 7/8 by 5 inches. All right, so for these, we're gonna do something a little bit different here. I am gonna run tape on both sides of the gusset. My old cricket thing that I used to tear my tape. It was literally just here. Oh, okay. So I'm going to do one of these with you guys, and then I will do the other two off camera. Okay. All right, so we're gonna run our tape. And then we are going to run tape on this piece as well. I watch some of these ladies in their videos that somehow can hold the tape like this and run it and get it straight. And I tell you what, I cannot do that to save my life. I don't see how they do it. Because it's definitely not something I'm able to do. So that's okay. Everybody does it a little bit differently. Okay, we're going to throw a couple pieces down in the center. At some point I'm going to order some of the big, like 8.5 by 11 sheets of score tape. I just haven't gotten to that point yet, because every time I think about it, it's like I literally just ordered something. And I'm like, no, I don't need to place another order right now. So, yeah. Okay, get this backing off of this. All right. And then what I'm gonna do is I am going to run some glue into the gusset. I am gonna run glue over my score tape, which is totally fine to do. Won't hurt a thing. I'm going to do the same thing on here. And then we're going to position this. So, excuse my head, but you just kind of want to center that over your gusset. And you're just going to come in here and you're going to burnish it down. And we're going to do the exact same thing for both of these. Okay, so we're going to start building our pages. And this is going to be, excuse me, just one second. Okay, this is going to be a little bit different than most albums you've done, I'm sure. So here is one set of our pages, okay? They're going to be identical. One's going to go over here, one's going to go over here. I'm not sure if I'm going to put them with one here and one here, or with the one here and the one here. So I haven't attached this one yet, but we will attach this once the entire thing is built and ready to go, okay? I'm going to move that piece out of the way. So basically, we're going to build this longer base piece first. We're going to build and attach our hinge, and then we're going to build each of these page sets and then attach them to the hinge. So we're actually going to build these in their entirety before we attach them to the hinge, okay? So as I give you measurements for the pages, everything that we do here, you will do a second time for here, okay? So let me grab the scoreboard. Okay, we're gonna start with our hinge, and I started folding this and getting this taped and ready to go and went, no, wait a minute, I need to wait. Okay, so your hinge is gonna be 4 3/4 inches by 6 7/8. You're gonna score this at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 3/4, 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 3 3/4, and then 4 1/4. Okay, from that point, of course, you're going to do all your little folds and whatnot. You're going to put tape so that you're putting on your valleys here, and then we're actually going to flip this over and we're going to put tape. Once you've done those, we're going to put tape on both sides of those hinges so that it's on there before we actually start, put that on the base. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we've got 2 hinges. Okay. All right, so there's our hinges. So this should be, when you're finished with it, should be 3/4 inch, all the way down, all the way down. Okay, so then you're gonna take, and I used 3/8 inch score tape to build the hinges themselves. What we're gonna do here is I'm actually gonna take 1/2 inch score tape and put it on the back side here. really hard not to let it go over that edge, either on the end or on that front part of the hinge itself right here. Try to make sure that it doesn't go over that edge. And then I'm going to use 1/4 inch and go over this again. And you're just going to get that right up against your 1/2 inch, and it should fit just perfectly. Okay, now, how do I burnish that down? Haha, that's kind of hard actually. Best thing to do really is just to kind of fold your hinge over, go over it one way, push your hinges back the other direction, because this does help train them too as far as which directions they need to, you know, to go so that your pages move easily. Okay, then we're gonna go and put adhesive on both sides of the hinges. For this, I'm going to use 1/4 inch because we don't want it to go all the way to the bottom, because of course our page is not going to go all the way to the bottom. Our page is going to be about maybe 1/8 of an inch up from the bottom. So we're just going to come in here and we're going to put 1/4 inch score tape about halfway down. Okay. So I'm going to go through and do this on one side. And really you could probably do this before you assemble the hinge. I just like to do it after because I have actually gotten them backwards before and had to start my hinge all over again. And that's never fun. I've got this overhanging just a little bit, but we'll fix that in a second. I'll show you what we're going to do. So, and make sure you're not putting this all the way to the bottom. You're putting it pretty much right in the middle. Okay. Flip it over. Go the other direction. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we are going to ever so slightly miter those hinges. So see here, we've got our score line. You wanna go above the score line about 1/8 of an inch and do a very, very shallow miter, okay? We're gonna do this on every single one of these. This is why it's helpful to put your tape on now, because when we miter that, you're getting that tape right to the very, very edge. Okay, and we're going to come do the same thing on this other side. Now, why would you miter the corners on a hinge? Well, because when we build our pages are going to be the exact same height as the hinge. When you put them down on here, when they hit that unmitered part of your hinge, that's where they're going to stop. So that's going to automatically give you that little bit of space you need, because you don't want your page going down all the way to your hinge, to the bottom of your hinge. You want it just slightly above, and this will help you to get it just slightly above. Okay. All right, so that piece is good to go. bring in the scoreboard again. Okay, the next piece is going to be our base piece that hinge sits on. This is 12 by 6 7/8. So we're going to line this up with the 12-inch side at the top of our scoreboard. We're going to score at 4 3/4, 6 inches, and then 10 3/4. Now, when you fold this, this is going to give you a perfect little rectangle. Okay? So, when we go to put our hinge in here, you're going to open it up with this little 1 1/4 inch flap on your left-hand side. Okay? Unless you want to switch it around and do it the other direction, it's entirely up to you. This is how I'm going to do mine. Okay? So we're going to pull the backing off the bottom of the hinge, not up here where the little flappy parts are, but off the flat bottom part of the hinge. Crying out loud, my hands are shaky today. I don't know why. Okay, and then what else I'm going to do to help us get this lined up the way we want it to, I'm actually going to go over this entire hinge, if my glue wants to unclog for me, with art glitter glue. This is going to do two things. It's going to help reinforce the hinge, but more importantly, because we've got the glue on here, it's actually also going to give us the ability to kind of wiggle this around and get it exactly where we want it. All right, so I'm going to turn this sideways. And since they are the same height, it's going to go all the way to the bottom. What you're looking for is having at least almost 1/4 inch, assuming your hinge came out right. So between 1/4 inch, roughly 1/4 inch, that's what I'm trying to say, of space on either side of that hinge. Okay, so see, there's our score line, there's the edge of our hinge. And on this side, score line, edge of our hinge. Okay, so once you get that where you want it, go right here in those gussets and burnish that down. And then we can set this aside to dry because we're not going to do anything with it again for a few minutes. Not that we used a ton of glue that wouldn't dry fairly quickly, but you know. Okay, so you're going to want to cut 4 inserts for your pages. These are 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. These are going to slide in between your pages. Just write on here insert and set them aside because that's all you need to do with those. You're going to need 4 for each set of pages, so 8 total. I have 4 in my finished portion of my book. There's 4 of them in here. Here's the other 4 for the other half. I'm going to set that aside over there with my hinge. All right, so the next little piece we're going to work on is going to be this little flappy-do thing with its closure that holds this whole set of pages closed, okay? I could have done this with one piece that wrapped all the way around. I have not had good luck with getting things to lay flat and line up exactly the way I wanted. So instead, I did this in 2 pieces. You absolutely could do it in one piece. It's 2 inches wide. You would score it, if you're doing it in one piece, you're going to score it exactly like you scored, or no, you wouldn't do it exactly like, just kidding. If you did it in one piece, you would score it at 1 inch from the end and then 2 1/4, turn it around. So say, you know, you pretend this is a 12-inch piece, okay? You would score it at 1 inch and at 2 1/4, flip the whole thing around and then do the same thing on the other end. Then that still would not line up. forget I said any of that. Next piece we're going to work on is this little flap that is going to hold your book closed. I did this in 2 pieces. I think it lines up and looks a little bit better and works a little bit better in 2 pieces, and it doesn't add some weird bulk in the middle of the back of your album. So you're going to need 2 pieces, 2 inches by 5 1/4. With the 5 1/4 inch side at the top, you're going to score it at 1 inch and at 2 1/4 on both pieces. Okay. We're actually going to bring this back in because we can go ahead and attach this. Okay, so what I did is I actually turned this over and I took, this end. So when it's in your book, you're going to have the little flap that hangs over on the side, okay? So this, that does not have the 1 1/4 inch flap on this end, this is the bottom of your book, okay? Your page insert. So on this, what I did is I took my handy little Tim Holtz ruler, and because it's got that centering, the centering measurements on here, all I did is I took this and I centered this up on here. Okay, we know this is 2 inches. So what I did is I then made a mark at 1 inch. Slid it up a little bit more. Got it centered again. Marked 1 inch, 1 inch. Okay. And then I just took, and I think on my other one I did this before I put the hinge in there, so sorry about that. You can still do it this way, it's just a little bit harder. Okay, so I'm going to draw 2 lines, and that's what I'm going to use to align where I am attaching this little 1 inch tab on this flap, okay? So, and I actually am going to erase my measurements off of here. I mean, it's going to get covered with pattern paper, but, you know, they still don't need to be there. Okay, so all I did on this, on one of them, I'm using 1/2 inch score tape. And I'm going all the way across both of those little scored areas, leaving my longer 3 inch piece with no score tape. Okay. Actually, no, I didn't. That one I did to go all the way over. Okay. But I'm not going to put tape on the rest of this just yet because I want to get this lined up. So I'm going to remove the backing, maybe, if it wants to cooperate with me today. And I'm going to start with this side with the flap. Okay. So what I'm going to do, make sure you got your crease. I am going to hold this up here, line that up between the 2 lines that I drew on the back of the book and push it down, okay? We're going to take our other piece, make sure it's folded. On their second piece, we're only going to put tape on this little 1 inch flap. Been very tape challenged the last couple of days. I can't even tell you. Okay, so on this one, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna get that crease up against the corner here, line up between the two lines, and then press it down. Okay, so now you've got your flaps. Okay, so on this side, I did put score tape up on the side here. And I am going to attach this. So this is entirely up to you. If you wanted to leave both flaps just kind of hanging out there because we're going to put a magnet on here that's going to hold this closed, that's entirely up to you. On my other half, I did actually adhere this one all the way down and left just the one that opens loose, because of course, you know, you got to leave that one loose. I'm dropping stuff all over the place here. Okay, so I think I am going to go ahead and stick the other half of this down. And really, if you wanted to, you could just do the one flap and put a magnet in here. I wanted it to come all the way around so it gave it the look of a belly band without it really being a belly band. So that's, you know, it's kind of my thinking there. So this side, don't really need to get too crazy with the tape here, but it's really, I could have just glued it. That probably would have been easier, but that's okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get this tape down. Crying out loud. Okay. Some days it's just not worth it. Okay, so we're gonna get that pushed down. We're gonna go ahead and put our magnet on here. Since we're here, we might as well. And I'm just gonna use the tiny magnets. I don't think we need the great big one. I may come to regret this, you never know. But for now, we're just gonna go with it. Okay, so this is gonna come over like that. So we're gonna put that about right there. And then I'm gonna take a small piece of score tape. Well, maybe if it will stop rolling up on me. Let's try this again. Small piece of score tape. Put our magnet on there. You know, I got in the habit of taping my magnets down because for a long time I think I had these same basic gray magnets that I'd bought. I'm honestly not even sure how long ago, but a really long time ago. And I think the adhesive was just not as effective at that point. So I got in the habit of taping them down, and then I got new, had to order magnets, order new sets of magnets. That was going over too far. That's okay though, because we can fix it. And lo and behold, like, the adhesive was actually okay. And I was like, this is interesting. And I think it was literally just that the adhesive on the other ones was old, because I truly don't know when I bought them. They've had them for that long. Okay, so got our magnets. Next, we're gonna work on our page bases. So let me grab the scoreboard again. Okay, your page bases are gonna be in two pieces. The first is going to be 6 7/8 by 4 5/8. You're going to need 4 of those. For this section, 8 total. And then you need 4 for this section, 8 total, that are 7 7/8 by 4 5/8. We're going to score both of these score all of these at 1/2 inch from each end. So you're gonna put your 7 7/8 edge at the top. You're gonna score at 1/2 inch, flip it around, score at 1/2 inch again. And we're gonna do that with all 4 of these. Oh, that was crazy. Must not might be my day. I should probably not be doing this today. Next thing you know, I'm gonna cut off a finger or something. No, not really, but hey, it's possible. Weirder things have happened. Okay. So once we get all those, we are going to get out our 3/8 inch score tape. We're gonna put our tape on our ends here, get them folded over, and then we're going to adhere one side only of these. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Let's get our tape on here. And I find it easier to do the tape before you actually fold anything. You know, I've done it the other way too. It's really just a personal preference. But I mean, you can see where your score line is. You can see where the tape needs to go. I don't necessarily need it folded to know where my tape needs to go. Especially something this basic. Hinges, yeah, I need to know where, I need it folded and know where it needs to go. But not so much with the pages. So now we're going to fold these over, and then we need to miter these. So I'm going to fold 2, and then go ahead and pull out my little scissors here and miter the corners just like you normally would. And I'm going to do it 2 at a time to save time. Okay, this again. Okay, all right, so let's start with one of these pieces and one of our other base pieces. So what I'm gonna do, get this corner folded up, get that corner folded up. I'm gonna pull adhesive partway off of one corner, okay? Just like we did when we were putting the other pages together. Only this time what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna line this up here, make sure it looks good at the top, kind of hold it there best I can, which is kind of hard because, you know, you've got your score tape backing still on there and it's some slippery stuff. Get this lined up as best you can and then push it down in that one corner that you've got peeled back, and there you go. Okay, we'll do the same thing again. We're going to do this with all of our page bases. Kind of get that, start getting that lined up there, get it lined up down here, and then it very easily gets put together evenly, which is always the hard part. I don't know how many books I have done where my page bases are just slightly off, and you know, most people wouldn't notice. I notice, and it drives me insane. So, same thing again. that mostly lined up. Make sure we're not too far to one side or the other. And then push that corner down. Okay. And you'll notice we aren't yet hooking this other side. That's because we're not going to put this part down until we actually go to put that on the hinge. The reason for that is it helps us get these lined up better on the hinges, leaving where we can get that little gap we need at the bottom. It's just another safeguard in how we get these actually onto the hinges in our book. And I don't remember who or where I saw somebody do it that way, and I was like, oh my God, that makes so much more sense than the way I've been doing it. All right, so we can move these. There's our 4 page bases. I'm gonna move these to the side. Okay. The next thing we want is we're gonna start working on our page elements. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through here, I'm gonna give you measurements, and we're gonna score all of these little pieces, and then we'll bring our page bases back in and decide where we're gonna put everything. Because you don't have to put them in the same place in both sides of the book. It won't matter, it's entirely up to you. So first we've got a pocket that will go on one of the pages. It's 4 1/4 high by 5 5/8 wide. You're going to score this at 1/2 inch from each end. Next we've got a flap. This is going to be 6 7/8 high by 5 1/8 wide. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch. Okay, we're gonna do a stacked belly band. The large, long piece is gonna be 7 7/8 wide by 4 inches across. I'm sorry, 7 7/8 high by 4 inches wide. You're gonna score that at 1/2 inch, flip it, and 1/2 inch again. The little one that goes on top of this is gonna be 5 inches wide by 3 inches high. With the 5 inch side at the top, you're going to score it 1/2 inch on each end. Okay. We've got a couple of little flips we're going to put in here. So they are 4 5/8 wide by 3 5/16 tall. You're going to put that 3 5/16 side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. There's 2 of these in each side of the book, so. All right, so then we've got like a little short, I called it a short pocket. It's really just kind of a little tuck spot. It's gonna be 2 inches high by 4 5/8 wide. We don't need to score this because we're just gonna do adhesive just around the edges so that it sits a little bit flatter. But in that little tiny pocket, we're gonna do a little tiny accordion album. So this is 3 inches high by 12 inches wide, and we're gonna score it at 3 inches, 6 inches, and 9 inches, okay? So when we fold this up, which we can go ahead and fold this because that's all we have to do to this one, is like that. And that's going to tuck down into that little short pocket. Okay, and then we're going to have a photo flap at the very back of this, and it is 12 inches by 4 inches. This one's actually, I think, like 4 1/8 because it's just one of my scraps from somewhere else in the book. That's totally fine. We're just going to score that at 6 inches and fold that in half. And now we are ready to start putting all of these fun little things onto our page bases. Okay, so this little flap is going to go at the back of the book, just back here. You could put it on the front if you wanted to. I liked it on the back. I'm actually just going to glue this one. I think it'll be a little bit easier. Which actually, I know what I did. And this is fine, they can be different. The other one I actually did tape and left it open at the top so I could tuck a tag in there if I decided I wanted to. This one, however, I am going to stick all the way down. Okay, so let's get that one out of the way. Don't need to do anything to that yet until we go to mat it because it's just folded. Stick that one out of the way. Let's bring in one of our page bases and figure out what we want to put on this one. So what I had tried to do on the other one is I have these two little flips that, actually I'm going to miter the corners out really quick while they're sitting here. All I did with these is I just put them on the back side of two random pages so that when they're on here, they flip back and forth like that, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing here. I think I'm going to try gluing this time. Just because I have a retreat to go to next week and I don't want to use all my score tape and then have to try to go find some at the last minute. Okay, so all we're doing is lining up the side that we're not gluing at the very bottom and then pushing that flap down. Okay, so there's one. Let's do the other one the same way. Didn't want glue in the front of that. Okay, so same thing. We're just going to line this up, even with the bottom, and then press that down. Okay, so let's do the belly band next. So same thing, we're going to miter these corners just ever so slightly. Just gives you a cleaner look. Reduces some bulk, which is always a good thing. And actually, I'm going to erase my measurements off of here in my notes, because on that one I kind of wrote them where you'd see them. Okay, so this, we're just going to fold these over, do the exact same thing we did before, get some adhesive on here, and I absolutely could use score tape. I know I've got refills of my art glitter, so. Okay, and so with this, all I'm doing is just going to center this, line it up at the bottom of the page, centering it as best I can, push that down, and then go do the same thing at the other end. Let's get my adhesive on here. Tuck that in, push it down. Okay, so our little band is just gonna fold those ends in, and it's just gonna sit right here on top. And this one, so that I did get it centered, I actually did use the ruler trick again. So, line that up. This is 3 inches, so I need to go 1.5 on each side. And I just put a very light mark. I needed that to go. Okay, and that's just to kind of help you get it. It looks, I don't know, sometimes I like things to be symmetrical, sometimes I don't. In this case, I want it symmetrical. Okay, So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to line this up as close to the middle as we can. Push that in down. And then do the same thing on this side. Okay, so there's another one. And then this one, let's do the pocket. So for the pocket, I'm actually going to go back to my score tape for this. Maybe. Okay, so I'm going to miter my corners. I'm going to put my score tape on my ends. And then I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to take 1/4 inch score tape just along the bottom. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, pull the backing off the 1/4 inch. And I'm going to fold these little flaps over on top. Make sure everything's good creased down. And then I'm going to pull the backing off of there and put this down on my page. You're just going to line this up with the bottom and the sides, and there you go. And then I'm going to erase my notes off of here because they're right at the edge. Okay, so at this point, everything has an element of some kind. So I think I'm going to leave this one with nothing on the back. I'm going to leave this one with nothing on the back. I'm going to take this one with my little flappy thing. And this is the other thing, which this would matter more if I were putting something on the back of this pocket page, but just kind of pay attention to what's going to be up and what's going to be down so that you don't put something on here wrong, because I think we have all done that at one point or another. And this is the reason that undo exists, because I have had to pull several things up in recent days because I just failed. Okay, now we're gonna break out the score tape and use the last of this roll probably. Okay. All right, so how do I want this to open? This way or open this way? It doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm going to kind of hold that in since I know this page. The flap is the same size as the whole page. I'm going to line it up on this one side and then stick it down on the other. Okay, so that one's done. This one, we've got our short pocket. And all I'm going to do with this one is just run 1/4 inch score tape all the way around. Okay. Okay, all right, and I'm just going to line this up at the bottom. And push it down. Okay, so our pages are done. Now we just need to figure out what order we want to put them in our book. I And I'm going to start at the back here. I think I'm going to put this little short pocket at the back of this one. So what I'm going to do, okay, and this is kind of weird, but it will make sense, I promise. I'm going to start on this side of my flap, or I'm sorry, my hinge, and pull the tape off, okay? Making sure everything's the right side up. Make sure this is going to go the right way, so when this is in here, yes, this is going to be right side up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start it in this orientation. So I've got my small flap that's actually going to close up my page on my left hand side. So it's going to be at the bottom of my book, which really, if this was flipped the other way, you could do it either way. But what we're looking for, hopefully I can show you, and this will make sense. Okay, so we've got our hinge. What we want to do is put this down on here. Actually, how did I do this? Okay, yeah, this is okay. Yes, we want this open. We're going to kind of pinch this end closed so that you're hooking. Pinch this closed so that you're hooking the end of your flap, your page, onto that hinge. Okay? So you're just kind of setting it down on there. Okay. Now we're going to set this up and get that lined up so that you've got that little bit of space. Make sure it's not hanging out over your page. Or I'm sorry, over the end of your thing here. And then I'm going to push it down. Okay. So now it's hooked in there exactly where I want it. So I've got that little bit of space, about between 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch. Now flip it back over this way. And I remove my tape. Backing. I'm going to fold that one over. That's going to come all the way across. And there you go. Your page is in the book. And it's got enough space like it's supposed to have. And we're good. We're going to do the same thing on the other 3 pages. I'm going to do them sitting down, so it's a little bit easier. Okay, so do I want this one or do I want the pocket one? I think I want my pocket one next. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do it. Okay. So in this case, right side up is going to be this way. So I'm starting with my small flap that's going to close it up on my right hand side this time. Doesn't really matter. Get in here over your book however you need to do it so that you can see. And okay, there we go. And then we're going to pull up our tape backing. That's what I didn't do. Okay, so the way I had done mine last night, I actually pulled up the tape backing on the hinge, pushed this down so it sticks to it, because then it kind of lays down a little bit easier. And then we're just going to fold that up, and it closes up, and there we go. Although that one's slightly off, isn't it? Yeah, I did something wrong. So this is undo. This is the best stuff on the planet because it allows me to get in here just like so. ruin my table. Of course, this table's like ancient, so I don't know that I really care. Okay. Try again. There we go. Much better. Much, much better. And to think, for years, I've been using this just to get gunk off my scissors. Seriously, like never had used this on a page to fix something in all the years I've been doing this. And yeah, I don't know why. That was just really, really silly. Okay, so I think we're gonna put this one next. And it's entirely up to you. You put these in here in any order and any configuration you want to. You want to change them? Change them. It doesn't matter. Make it your own. You know, tutorials are nice when you're learning stuff, or, you know, I like doing them when I get kind of in a funk and, you know, like nothing is inspiring me. Then, you know, I'll find somebody's tutorial and do that because that usually gets me going again. But, and then there's some days that I want to make something and I don't want to have to plan it. I don't want to have to think too hard about it. So I find a tutorial, because then all I have to do is go, oh, I cut where now? Okay, perfect. And it just makes life a lot easier. Okay, so we're gonna get this one flat this time. And there we go. Now, I have found that I end up fighting with these a lot less doing it with this method. Okay, there's our flap. So the last one is our belly band, and I think I want that facing out to the front. So it's the first thing you see when you open this part of the book. Keep having to turn this around and around and around. I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that when working on this kind of stuff. Okay, now we're rocking. Once I quit losing things over here, huh? Okay, so one last time, fold that over, bring it down, press it down, and look at that. There is our second book. Where my little short pocket went. There is our little accordion album that's just going in that little short pocket. And truly, the little accordion album came about because I had a scrap that I thought would be just perfect for that. I thought it would be cute. Okay, I'm gonna slip our inserts in here. They go in really easily because they're not like, they're a 1/4 of an inch smaller than the pockets. That is on purpose because I've just had insert issues lately, like getting them in and out. So I was like, no, we're gonna make sure they're gonna fit. All right, so there we have it. Okay, so now we can bring this back in, and we can bring this back in and figure out which page in here lost its insert. But I found it on the floor. So there we go. Okay, so now we get to decide. Do we want to attach this one over here, like so, so that when they open, they're like that? Or do I want to put it here so that they're both in the middle? But when that opens, then it's going to run into that one. I think I am going to put him over there. All right, so how do we want to adhere this to this? I think I'm going to put a little bit of score tape on here. just because I think that would be a good start. Strip right there in the middle. Okay. Turn this over, open this up, find my phone folder. Okay, let's close this back up, turn it over, and then we're gonna add some glue once I get the backing off of these. Okay, and then we're going to get glue everywhere. All right, so we're going to line this up. We're going to center it in here as best we can, top to bottom, and side to side. I'm actually going to push it over just a tiny bit so that it kind of butts up against that part of our hinge. Okay, and we're going to go under here like this. And we're just gonna burnish away. All right, one side is down. Let's figure out our other side. This is the side I'm still kind of on the fence how I even want to do this. I don't know, I can't decide if I want it all the way over here. That'd be weird, like when you open this, if it's all the way over here, so it opens up like right there, or do I want to head and put it here? Because when you have this opened up, it's not gonna matter, but then that's still gonna get in the way. All right, oops, inserts escaping. I think I am gonna put this one all the way over here, which is fine because we're gonna do, you know, just a really nice mat here. We could really do another like little pocket of some kind right here. We could do another pocket or just a pretty mat over here as well. It's entirely up to you. But I think I am gonna put this all the way to that side. Right. Okay. Backing off. So the weather is totally insane here. So today's Friday. On Wednesday, it was like almost 65 degrees. It was gorgeous. And then yesterday, it was a little bit cooler, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't too bad. And then last night, you know, it'd been kind of raining off and on yesterday. And last night, you know, we had a pretty good thunderstorm. At about 9 o'clock last night, it started snowing. I got up to 4 inches of snow again at the end of March. What is it? The 29th of March. Yeah. Absolutely insane. and it's snowing again. Which granted, the majority of what it left last night is gone, but come on, people. All right. So I'm gonna do the same thing we did over there. Kind of get this lined up top to bottom, and then lay it down and burnish our little hearts out. All right, so with that, the base of this is done. And you end up with two little albums in one, which is kind of cool. I'm gonna have to go down and either dig in my stash and find some ribbon, because I do want something to hold this closed. But I might just do the same thing on the outside that I did on here, as far as, and just do a magnetic closure of some kind. In fact, I think that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing. So let me figure out how I am gonna decorate all of this, and I'll be back. Okay, so we're ready to start matting the book. I have attached some ribbon, well, seam binding, that I've run around so that when we close this up right here, we can tie it. Let's start with the, excuse me, the interior of the book. So I've already gone ahead and matted this entire section, including our inserts. So I'm going to show you on this side, because they'll be the same, what we're going to do. Okay, so let's start on the inside first. So for the inserts, remember you've got 4 of them. These are going to be matted at 6 1/4 by 4. I'm using some of the cards from the journaling and ephemera card pack, the 4x6, so they're just a little bit smaller, but that's okay. And then just on the other side, just some of the pattern paper. This is from the Patterns and Solids pack that you can get that goes with this particular collection. I am using the Graphic 45 Flutter collection. I bought this, I don't know, at some point last year, because I was just absolutely in love with it, and decided to finally use it this week. So I set those aside. Okay, so for any of these pages that are the big panels, they are going to be 6 5/8 by 4 1/2. So what I'm doing here is I've got another one of those journaling cards that I'm just going to mount on there. For the double belly band, I've got 2 1/4" pieces that I can put on these edges right here. You could leave them off, it really is entirely up to you. For the top and the bottom section, these are 3 3/4 by 2 inches, or if you wanted to do a full piece through there, it would be 3 3/4 inches by 6 5/8. I decided to split that into 2 pieces. For the center section of the belly band is 3 3/4 by 2 3/4. So this is just another one of the big panels, so 6 5/8 by 4 1/2. Same thing over here. This is our flap. So for all 3 pieces of the flap, it's going to be 6 5/8 by That's not right, is it? 6 5/8 by 4 1/2, sorry. Got two different measurements written down on there. And then I'm just doing the same thing inside with those ephemera cards because they're awesome. So on our small little flippy thing here, I'm using ephemera cards again. They're not quite big enough, so all I'm doing is just kind of supplementing them with just another little piece here, like this. Looks okay. And then up above, of course I've got 1,000 pieces of paper flying around here. We're gonna do that one up there. All of these are 3 1/8 by 4 1/2. Another just big panel, 6 5/8 by 4 1/2. For our pocket, we've got 4 3/8 by 3 for the top, and then 4 3/8 by 3 7/8 for the bottom. Another one of the small flips, 3 1/8 by 4 1/2. And that is not right. I think I wrote that one down wrong because I know that's not 1 1/4. That should be 1 3/4. Not 1 1/4, so I'm gonna have to recut that little piece, but that's fine. So 1 3/4 by 4 3/8 for the short pocket. And then for the piece up above, it's gonna be 4 1/2 by 4 3/8. So we'll get that on there. We've got our little accordion in here. All of these are gonna be 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And then our last little flap here, I'm actually doing it like this. So the bottom one, the bottom piece is gonna be, because apparently I didn't write it down, 4 3/4 by 6. So you're gonna see when this is down, you're gonna see some of that out around the outside of that. And then I've got a little 1/4 inch strip that's gonna go just up above there. For on the flap itself, it's gonna be 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. We're gonna do that on both sides, which I think I'm actually using the pink side on both sides, so doesn't really matter. So, okay, so there's all of that. I'm gonna get those all attached here in just a minute. So for the outside, you've got 2 big panels here. These are both, let me find all my pieces here. These are gonna be 5 inches by 6 3/4. So that one's gonna go there. On this side, I didn't have one that was quite big enough, so I'm actually supplementing that with one of the borders to get it to the right size. For these 2 little spine pieces, they're gonna be, what are these? 1 1/8 inch by 6 7/8. I think it's 6 7/8. It's late, can you tell? No, I'm sorry, 6 3/4. So 1 1/8 by 6 3/4. You're gonna need 2 of those. And then this center spine is gonna be 2 3/4 by 6 3/4. And on this one, I've actually got one of the small ephemera tags that I trimmed down, so it's gonna sit right on top of there. Okay, so there's all of those mats. To mat the outside of the book, you're gonna have 2 pieces that are gonna be 4 1/2 by 2 1/4. And those are gonna go top and bottom, and I just lost a piece off the side of the table because of course I did. You're gonna do 2 pieces that are gonna be 1 inch by 2 1/4. And those are gonna go down here on the side. I've got another piece, I'm actually gonna turn this one this way, that is gonna come up and across like this. So we're actually gonna score this, which I did score it, at 1 inch. So it's going to come on that little band that goes across right there. On this other side, and I didn't score these. So both of these, and of course my scoreboard's buried. Okay, so these are both 1 3/4 inch by 3 3/4, and you're going to score them at 1 inch. So those are going to go on here, and then the other one is going to go on the inside here. Okay, for this flap, and I don't have this one cut already. I think I missed this one. I was going through and doing all of my trimming and whatnot. This piece is actually going to be 1 inch by 6 3/4. You need 2 of those, so one for the inside and one for the outside. Which I will come back and cut that in a minute. So that's how you're gonna mat the outside of this part. Okay, if I can do this without making a huge mess of things. Okay, I'm just gonna move those off to the side for now, because I know what they are and I know where they go, so it's okay. All right, I'm gonna close this up, and we're gonna look at the outside. Actually, before I get it completely closed, I've got these mats and a ruler on the floor. These are gonna be 5 inches by 6 3/4. Okay, so those are going to go there. And we close it up again. I've got these little spine pieces, and these are going to be, I believe they're 1 1/8. I'm sorry, 1 1/4 by 6 3/4. They're going to go on there. And then on the front, no, maybe I did cut this all the way around. I didn't think I did. Okay, yep. All right, so for our front and our back covers, we're going 5 inches by 6 3/4. So it's gonna be front and back. And on our spine, this is gonna be 2 7/8 by 6 3/4. So, I'm gonna finish getting this matted up and then decorated, and then we are all done. All right, so it is done. Not a super difficult one to do, which is nice. There came one of my ephemera cards out of the pocket. Not super hard. Uses quite a bit of paper, so be prepared. But overall, not a bad project. Thanks for checking it out, and if you happen to follow this tutorial and make your own version, please, by all means, share it on Scrapping Under the Influence Facebook page, and have a good night.